you're excited because now all of a sudden you have other people's money behind you. And that is a relief.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't mean you can go crazy, but it means that there's well-planned money. Someone's planning that money for marketing. All those things get better because you're not doing all of it. And so what I did like about it was I got help.
That's great.
From Sarah Systems and Billy Go, this is No BS with Billy Stevens and Landon Brewer, the unfiltered, straight-shooting podcast that dives deep into the heart of home service trades to uncover the truth about running your business. You're entering the No BS zone with Billy and Landon.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to the No BS Show. We're back. It's Billy and Landon here to talk to you about all kinds of crazy stuff. Today, we're going to talk about how much money do you really need to continue to live the lifestyle that you currently have when you sell your company. This is a pretty interesting one. What do you think about this one, Mr. LB?
I think this is a show that we probably should have done like 4 years ago before everybody started selling their business and buying their Lamborghinis.
Uh-huh. Yeah, because reality is serviced, right?
I think there's a lot of people that could have been served by this show earlier on. But,
well, maybe we can help some folks out. You know, we're just in the infancy of all this anyway. So, I mean, there's plenty of companies out there that haven't sold. I mean, I would say it's obviously the bulk of it. Probably 95% of the industry hasn't been in a transaction, which is, it's wide open. But right now we've got inflation, we got high interest rates, and we have lower multiples. And probably because of the other two, the EBITDA is probably lower. EBITDA is cash flow for those of you listening, how much available cash flow is in the business. We call it EBITDA. It's short. For earnings before interest, taxes, depreciation, amortization. And so what we want to share with you today is a formula. It's a pretty easy formula, and this is an after-tax formula because I don't know your tax liability. So this is after tax. So for instance, if you're making $100K a year, you need to multiply that times 25. No matter what you're making per year, you take the amount of money you make per year. If you're thinking about selling your business, and you take the amount of money you make per year, and figure in your friends' benefits too. Okay, and typically when you do that, you multiply it times 1.4. That'll be what it's going to cost you to have insurance and all those things when you're off on your own that you take for granted, in your company. And for instance, if you make $100,000 a year with all your benefits and stuff, you're going to need to receive at least $2.5 million to live on 4% of your investments. Why 4%? Well, that seems to be the number that, people have done, the wealth managers, this is what they teach. This is what they recommend to their clients, that you can live on 4% of your nest egg. Therefore, your nest egg should never run out. You should be able to pass that nest egg on to your, your significant others, your children, your grandchildren, whoever. However, we need to be able to get enough to be able to do that. So it doesn't make sense to sell your company and then lower your living standards. That would be a mistake. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think so. I don't think that most people do it. I think, most people look at cash flow and they look at, what's sitting in a bank, and then they start spending based on that, right? It's the same thing. It's like, you go buy like you go get a personal car and you can, buy it, lease it, et cetera. And it's like, well, most people think of, all right, well, what's the payment that I can afford, right? And if you do that on a lease, it's like you're just buying the bulk of the depreciation up front, and then the residual is going to be left, right? So you're just paying for, somebody else's depreciation. But most people, I think with their, the amount of money that they're just sitting facing.
Mm-hmm. Well, think about it. When you think of the gross overall amount, let's say it's $5 million or $10 million. Let's just use $10 million for example. You're like, $10 million. I mean, come on. I'll never run out of money. But couldn't be further from the truth, because the man's going to take 25+%, depending on where you live. So now Yeah, probably more. So you're anywhere from 6 million to 7.5 million on day one.
Yep.
A lot of that money is gone, right? And then you need to live off of that. And so 4% of, let's just say 6 million is 240 a year. Now, if you're making less than that, then you're going to have a really good lifestyle for the rest of your life. If you were making more than that, you're going to be pinched a little bit. And the reason why they stick to the 4% rule, because you want to make on the average 8% a year on your investments, and that gives you 4% to reinvest. And that goes back to my favorite quote, which is the greatest invention of mankind is compound interest. And so this is what's very important, is how do you keep the money for as long as possible? You reinvest, and hopefully that money triggers cash flow back to you, equal or greater than 4% or 8%, is the minimum that you want to make on any investment. If you get some that are bigger than that, great. If you get some that just lose money, that's going to happen too. You can't always get it right. There are risks when you invest your own money, but the main thing is you have to invest it. The beauty about today is you could probably go out and get a 5% CD right now if you had enough money. And you did a short enough term, you'd probably get 5%. It's not a long term. The longer the term, the less interest they're going to pay you. The shorter the term, the more interest they'll pay you.
That might be the beauty, but the reason that that's possible is because inflation's even higher than that.
Yeah, I know. You got to keep up with that. And so, that's way beyond yours and mine math skills, because the rampant inflation it's just off the chart. So, like, for instance, I believe where our inflation is, up 50% since Biden's been in office. It's some crazy number. And so you have to price that in as well, because everything's almost, 1.5 times or more expensive, 50% or more expensive. And that's everything: rent, water, everything, electric.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the official metric, but it's the metric that officially every American has to deal with. Yeah,
we all have to deal with it. That's correct. And so that has a big play on your overall revenue stream if you sell your business. And so you have to factor these things in. Now, that's where the compound interest comes in over time, is to help with the inflation, right? That's why you reinvest, to help with inflation. And so the rule of thumb that I use is you always want to make sure that you're 25x your salary, all in, yours and if your wife works for the company, or she's thinking about retiring, or you don't work for the company, you work for someone else, and both of you are going to retire, you have to take the income that you both make plus the benefits, add in some inflation, over time. 3% a year is typically what you shoot for. And then what is that number? Add all that up and then multiply times 25. And then that is what you should have left over after taxes. That is not the gross amount.
Yeah.
Again, because I can't figure your taxes for you. So,
which, what's interesting about this and why this is a difficult thing for most people. So when you say that you've got to have, let's call it 25 years of income to live off of after that, if that's what you want to do, you want to retire and live off of it. That I hope that most people are getting a multiple of EBITDA that is, right now we're talking, if you have a tremendous amount of cash flow, maybe 10, maybe a 12 times, which is half of the, number of years that, you're going to need to be able to do it. So what I think is the problem here is that it's not that. I think that most of the owners are living a lifestyle business. And by lifestyle business, I mean taking all of the cash flow and living their lifestyle based on the cash flow of the business, not based on hey, I'm going to pay myself and wife or whoever a reasonable salary plus benefits and live off of that. Now they're taking that. They're also taking the cash, which they're absolutely entitled to do, but then they're building a lifestyle off of that, right? So now if you've got a business that's putting down, $500,000 in EBITDA, but you have a $600,000 a year life because you have a lifestyle business, you will never have a business that's valuable enough to sell to make up the difference. Make sense?
That's right. It does make a difference. And these are the things you need to think about when you enter into these contracts, because what we do is we focus on the big number, and that big number may not be big enough. The days of I need $1 million to retire, that's way over. That ain't going to get it done anymore.
Because you're losing your cash flow. You're going negative cash flow day one, unless you have a very strategic plan after that. And most people hopefully should. You have a financial planner that's going to invest in whatever CDs, stock markets, rental properties, whatever. But, even when you do that, there's no guarantee. If if your cash cow goes away, you gotta have a really strong plan after that. And that's just, we're just talking right now about the financial side of post-transaction, right? Now, you've spent your life, you're working in this business, you're doing all this, now you're retiring. Well, what happens when people retire? You got to figure out a way to, that's why I never have ever wanted any of my girlfriends, wives, et cetera, to be without a job. Not because I need the money coming in, because I don't want them to spend all their time spending it, right? So you gotta be thinking about that too.
Have you seen that meme where the guy goes, "Man, my wife's credit card got stolen, and I was looking at what the guy was spending. I decided not to cut him off because it was less than what she was spending."
I love it. That's great. That's logic right there.
There you go.
But I mean, that's a significant thing. It's like, okay, so now that I'm not spending all of my time, working towards making, this money, hopefully I've got something else that I'm going to be spending time working towards doing something for cash flow. Otherwise, if I'm just, going golfing, sitting at the beach, going shopping, doing whatever, now my lifestyle actually creeps up. Now you start factoring in what a lot of these people are doing and buying houses and, $400,000 vehicles and doing, like, you really have to have a mechanism to offset the cash flow. Otherwise, I think we're going to have, again, it's just from the surface, from me looking at the situation and seeing, I know that there are some very conservative people, and I talk to very conservative people who sold their business and they have this plan. Most, I don't believe, do. Just kind of like most, when they went into business, probably didn't have the plan to eventually exit that day. So I think there could be a rude awakening for a lot of people here in the next couple of years.
Yeah, especially if they didn't do any investing properly, and we have a economic meltdown again, because we're way overdue, folks. We're creeping on 20 years since the last one. That's a long time. It usually doesn't take this long, and that's scary. That's uncharted territory to be this far into a cycle and still not have a big pullback, just a small one. But I don't know, the way they print money now, they pretty much print themselves out of trouble and keep kicking it down the road.
Well, in that situation, right, you could be sitting in a situation where you sold your business, you got the cash, and you're sitting there with cash, and you can hopefully, get by on the investments. But, if we have another banking collapse, we have, whatever issue in the economy, quite frankly, it's best to be sitting on a cash generating asset like a business. Yeah. And,
my biggest wake up.
You got to consider these things.
My biggest wake up call was, the loss of the fringe benefits. And people don't. You need to.
I thought your wife didn't know about that. Oh, you're telling. Okay, never mind.
No. Okay. Yeah. No, I told her because I knew you couldn't keep your mouth shut.
I forget it's a family show. It's a family show.
There you go. So, the fringe benefits are, the things that we don't factor in that you need to factor in into your purchase price as well. You need to get that into the EBITDA formula so that you can get paid for it. Because every business has some, like eating out. That's a fringe benefit. Your gas card, that's a fringe benefit. Your company vehicle, that's a fringe benefit as well. And these are the things that go away. They go away immediately because no PE firm's going to let you drive around in an F-250 and they pay them for it. It's just not going to happen. And they're not going to let you, spend willy-nilly. You're going to have to address every dollar, all right, for them. And so all those things need to be factored into the sales, what you're going to sell the business for, and then get a multiple that makes sense to get you the number that you need so you can actually live a better lifestyle. In my opinion, you should do better than you were, for sure, is what you should be doing. Yep. And so these are just things that, we just wanted to talk about, that maybe some people that are, maybe in negotiations or whatever, this is something you need to know, because it really sucks to be left high and dry. You lose your business, you lose your camaraderie. At some point you're leaving the business, the camaraderie goes away. Maybe that's what's driving you crazy right now anyway, is employees. Yeah. But at the same time, when you don't have them, you will miss them.
Yeah, it is. That was a big one for me a couple times. Like now I was never really like, okay, I've had this business in the family for 40 years. And so it's part of my identity. It's always been, had this business for 5 years, had this business for 5 years. And, so I just, I'm like, oh, that was a business I had. That was a business. But to me, when you actually have to retire and get out, and I never made I just kind of like quietly drifted off into the sunset and was there to help people for a while. But somebody else owns your business, they don't want you involved in it. And there's a lack of socialization that occurs that I didn't expect. It's like it was an odd thing when you're used to spending so many hours working with small groups of people, and like that becomes part of your identity, and that just kind of goes away. It's like, okay, well, now I got to fill myself, my time with somebody else, some other people, and other things. So lack of socialization. I think there's also that a lot of people deal with that it is part of their identity, that business is them. It's a reflection of them. It's who they are. Luckily, I've done it multiple times, so I don't really deal with that as much anymore. But, you kind of lose your identity and don't know what to do. So besides financially preparing, you have to mentally be prepared for what are you going to do next that's going to, you're going to be equally happy doing. Yes. Even if you don't think you're happy right now, like you may be surprised.
Traveling, waking up when you want, going to dinner whenever you want, no stress. All that sounds wonderful, but it gets old too.
Yeah.
After a while, it did for me. I had to keep busy after, probably I was good for the first year. Maybe the first 3 months I wasn't so good, because I had to make that adjustment from being 100 miles an hour to 0.
Yeah.
So the first 3 months were hard. And then after that, I did better for 7 more months or 8 more months, whatever that is. And then after that 1 year mark, I was like, I got to do something. I've run out of non-stuff to do.
Yeah, it is pretty remarkable. It's, I guess it's a first world problem, something, good to have that now you can afford to go see your psychiatrist about it. But, it's,
not a psychiatrist.
I don't think people, whoever else you want to see about it. I really don't think people think about it. I like, they don't realize how much when their day-to-day changes, like it's a significant life change, and they may be looking forward to it, and they may be looking forward to specific instances. They may be visualizing themselves on a beach somewhere, drinking a Mai Tai or doing whatever they want to do with their time that you would maybe do on vacation. But, you can't stay on vacation forever.
That's right.
I wish I was one of those people, and maybe there are those people that they could just be like, okay, I'm out, I'm done. I just like to lay on the couch and watch TV for the next 60 years of my life. But
not me.
No, I can't.
No, I like the action. I want to be in the middle of all of the action.
Yeah, you got to use your faculties, right?
Yeah. But then again, because I sold, I've lived a life I'd never imagined. My goal when I actually was able to acquire the company that I got, with actually no money in my pocket, and I was able to get it. Try that these days. It was possible back in the day, but not anymore. And I basically got the business, relatively cheap, very cheap. And, I had to learn all the way. But my goal was, if I could be 100,000 and what did that mean? That was if we could make 100,000 a year one of these years. That would be like I hit the pinnacle of my goals. And that was where it started. I mean, he's like, okay, well, once I hit the 100, I'm like, it's 250 possible, right? And so I just kept going. But that was the goal. And that was a stretch. I mean, that was a big goal for back in the early 90s to do that. And of course, in our situation, my wife quit her job too, so we had no income, none at all, and it had to work. And so by putting such a lofty goal in between both of us quitting our jobs to having this 100,000 goal, we had to get after it, because we figured if we could just get back to where we were with our jobs, we would, if we could just pull that off the first year or get as close as possible, not go backwards, that was kind of the first goal. But my far-reaching goal was to make $100K a year. And now I don't know of many people in the company that make less than 100. Just the way it's changed. But yeah,
it's that inflation.
Yeah, it's that inflation because we were when I took over the company, their service call was $45 an hour. 45.
Yeah.
And
I remember talking to people like that back in the day. We'd go through that and just be like, I remember it was like arm wrestling to get some of these people to go to seven. Like we used to sell the price books, but we would ask them, okay, well, what's your hourly rate? Like, oh, $75 an hour is too much. I'm like, it's the idea is insane to me.
We went up to, after I got confident, we went to 55 an hour. I just thought I was going to just, set the world on fire at 55 an hour. And it didn't make any difference at all. It didn't even, we're still in the same situation. It didn't change anything. But it seemed like that $10, that was big. But that's crazy, isn't it? Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
That's just been, okay, it was 28 years ago, but still, the value of $1 has really gone down.
It's gone down significantly. Yeah.
Way down. It just doesn't buy what it used to. I saw a graph on that, and basically, with the way we have inflation, the actual dollar when it was worth $1 is worth 2 or 3 cents now compared to what it was worth at some point. I don't know how much further it can go. I guess they just keep going. Just funny math anyway. But you don't really need income tax if you have inflation, right? Isn't that kind of like double taxation without representation?
Yeah.
Isn't that what inflation is a tax?
Inflation is a tax. It's like every time they print money, it's a tax. It's a tax every time they send money overseas to some, whatever. Yeah, we're getting taxed to death. But you can overcome it if you know that that's coming. Yes. Right. That's the whole point of this is that, we're planning that's going to be the case, right? We're planning that we're no longer going to have the socialization. We're planning that we need to live off of 5% of our income, 4% of our income. We're planning that we need to have 25 years of income out there. We're planning that, we need to invest in, whatever portfolio of things we need to invest in to make it happen. You have to do all of that stuff and go through this exercise before you sit down and even say that you want to sell.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So we're just giving you some advice before you sell. If you do, or giving you some advice and letting you make a decision on whether it's right for you or not. Because we don't want you to do it on a knee-jerk reaction. There's more opportunity when the economy is bad than it is bad. And if you prepare yourself for the opportunity, you can make way more money keeping the business than you could if you sell it. Or you sell it and you take that money and you move to another location and start buying companies because they're not going to let you do it where you are now. But if you're going to do that, then why would you sell in the first place?
And if you're, more scaled, sophisticated operator, another thing that, I've realized after time is, you didn't even need to sell it, right? To get the money out of it. Like there are options. Like you can play private equity guy yourself.
Sure
You can go out and find a whole bunch of debt, which, these private equity groups, none of them use their own cash. They'll go raise a whole bunch of funds that they got to repay, right? And a lot of it, they have, private credit providers. They'll use maybe, on a $10 million deal, they're going to use, $500,000 of their own cash at most, right? And the rest of it's going to be from outside sources. So, if you think that you're worth $10 million, you want to go out and acquire and do all of these things, you've got the systems and infrastructures, go figure out a way to go find private credit to borrow it and then retain the equity for yourself.
Yep.
and get the dividends. I mean, it's really, when you stop to think, you get out of the flurry of just wanting to sell and the craziness of the multiples, and you see everybody doing it and you're trying not to miss out, and you see all the social media, the cars and the houses, the planes, all this stuff. Like you get out of that for a second and you start thinking logically about it. It's like, okay, well, does it make sense to sell? Or, where am I at in my life? Is this aligned with my life goals? It should be a very strategic, thought out process. And I tell everybody, hey, make a list, right? What are the pros and cons of selling? And I want you to be very, very self-aware that, here are some potential problems when I sell. Are my employees going to hate me? Or my customer, just sit there with your list, just like you should any major life decision, and say, okay, well, let's make an informed decision together now.
I think that's great advice. Man, you're on it today. How many Red Bulls do you have?
So I'm on my second one. We've done a couple of shows today.
Always know. Always can tell. Awesome. What are you drinking? Is it Red Bull or something else you got up your sleeve today?
This is a C4.
C4? Is that like an explosive? Oh, I guess later.
There's zero sugar, 0 calories, completely non-organic stuff inside here that's eating up my insides.
There you go.
There you go.
I was one of the early adopters of energy drinks. I got involved in Shark energy drink and Buku energy drinks. And once we realized what we all had to put in there to make those, we started investing in kidney transplants.
Yeah, that's the medical industry. It's like they watch what you're able to do to food, and then they make their drugs based on that.
Yeah. Red dye number 40. Okay, we can make a pill for that.
Have a solution for every problem you've created.
Yep.
Yeah. I'm telling you, we got to figure out a way to do that with, HVAC plumbing. Like, how do we figure out how to accidentally cause floods and just, accidentally, planned obsolescence of the machines that are installed? That'd be the somebody smart's going to figure that one out. There's going to be like a Fauci of HVAC and plumbing.
There you go. Well, speaking of that, let's get technical. We never really get technical on this show because of our technical abilities.
Stellar technical.
So what do you think about propane? Is it propane going to be in the Freon or butane, or which one is it?
According to Hank Hill, I think it's propane and propane accessories.
I live in the real world where men sell propane and propane accessories.
My dad says butane's a bastard gas.
But I don't know why they keep, there's absolutely, I assure you that there's no science behind it that it's going to do anything to help the environment. It's like, why don't you just figure out, the old stuff, the old, R22, completely fine, right? Like, I don't know why they don't stick to it and just let it go forever. They're intentionally driving up costs. They're intentionally causing inflation by doing this. And so I think that's going to be a massive problem. I think they're starting to roll it out right now in the peak of the year, and they're rolling it out early because of, maybe other shortages and stuff, compressors and all that. I think that's going to be a major problem. I'm not going to say who it might be the major problem or which manufacturers. I think there's going to be, some significant issues in the early rollouts of the stuff. What do you think?
I think that's about as deep as we can go with this one till we get an expert on the show. But Yeah, I think I read somewhere that like at the end of the day, R22 is the most efficient one of all of them. Yet that's the one we got rid of. Now, what happens when we change Freon or we change minimum SEER ratings? We get busier. And it's all about keeping the economy busy. We got to create capitalism. We got to create business, commerce. We got to do all this as a country, and that's why you had the EPA was formed back in the 80s so that we could create a new economy with clean air, clean burning fuels, all this stuff that makes zero sense. I'm a dirt bike rider. I love dirt bikes. I've been riding them since I was a little kid. Probably learned how to ride a dirt bike before I could walk. And I actually bought an electric one. Don't anybody hate me here. I just want you to hear me out. I have an electric dirt bike. It is the most fun thing I've ever ridden in my life. I mean, it is just so much fun. However, I'm burning more fuel running a generator to keep it charged up in between rides.
Yeah, I figured it's powered by magical fairy dust.
Yeah. And so, yes, we defeated the entire purpose other than noise, but generators make noise. So instead of noise being out on the track, now the noise is in the pits with all the generators running, trying to keep the charged dirt bikes back up. I have no plans in my future to ever own an electric car. I mean, they've got a lot of work to do before I'm going to do that.
I've done the hybrid thing, and I tried to figure out the math between it. Like, okay, well, then you start using more electricity, and unless you switch your plans, the rates go up. Now it's like, all right, well, I'm not really saving much between the electric and the gas. Might as well stop wasting my time doing it. Just go fill it up. But the savings is probably, I don't know, $10 a month. Hopefully if your usage isn't that high. Now I haven't run an air conditioner and used it yet, so who knows?
We have a family member that lives up in Colorado, and they have an electric car, and they come down to Texas for family events, whether weddings or something. They'll come down, or reunions or whatever, and it's added 8 hours to their drive.
Oh yeah.
But yet the first thing they do is brag on their car. That's the first thing.
Any gas.
You should get one of these. These are awesome. I love it. I'm like, well, it took you 8 more hours to get here. What's the love about that? Anyway, are we going?
Well, I mean, we, depending on how these elections go, we could be faced with that even more, right? I mean, they're trying to mandate it here in California that all vehicles that are new vehicles sold by, I think, 2030 have to be electric. You can't sell a normal engine car. That's insane. I think they blocked it. I think they're trying to go national with it, but you vote the wrong way, that's what you're left with.
Well, the sales are starting to tank because the people that wanted them have bought them.
And the resale value is difficult because the batteries are very expensive and have to be replaced. And it's like, okay, well, you can't really resell it.
Yep.
Just economically, it just doesn't ever make any sense.
But back on the electric dirt bike, I don't even know how to describe the difference. It's so much fun. I'm like literally like a kid again riding a dirt bike because I don't have to use the shifter, right? That goes away. So then my left foot is not busy anymore. I don't need a clutch because I don't have a shifter. So my left hand is not busy fanning the clutch, if you will. The rear brake is usually on your right foot. And so your feet are busy, and so your feet are never in the right position. And it's very important that you position yourself on the bike properly because you're flying in the air, you're doing all these things. And so the rear brake has moved up where the clutch used to be on my ICE engine, internal combustion engine. They call them ICE. And so now I have 2 hand controls and nothing to do with my feet but keep them in the right spot so I can squeeze the bike properly. And so I've literally taken many, many seconds off of my lap times because I'm not having to do all this other stuff. And I have a brand new ICE bike, it's less than a year old. And I rode it for the first time. I've had the electric motorcycle for about 3 months now. And I haven't ridden my gas engine for those 3 months. And I rode it this past weekend, and it felt like it was a 40-year-old motorcycle.
Wow.
It just felt like ancient. So there are some cool things that I do like about the battery powered. The downside is, I mean, I can only ride 30 minutes, but hey, when you're riding motocross like I do, you can't ride more than 30 minutes. But if you want to go into the woods and ride for an hour, you can't do it. That's the downside. You have to stop and let it charge up for 45 minutes to an hour, just like we see when we go to the gas station. You see them all lined up on the side of the building for an hour and a half.
Well, I
anyway.
mean, you think about that. So the ramifications of this electrification, might mean that our fleet, if again, depending on who wins and where you live, might mean that a big portion of your fleet needs to go electric, which has cost ramifications, et cetera, right?
It does. But you know what? I'd be honest with you. From a business point of view, I'm not opposed to electric van.
No, I'm not opposed to it either. What I am opposed to is not having the option.
You don't have an option, right?
Yeah.
Because here's what happens when you have an electric vehicle versus an ICE vehicle. Your brakes last longer, and that's a big thing in the vehicles that we carry around weight. Brakes are a big cost. Probably about every 10,000, 15,000 miles, you got to put brakes on these vehicles because they make them cheap. Whereas with an electric engine, you get generating the engine, I guess the motor, it's not an engine. The motor in the electric motor actually recharges itself when you slow down. So it has a braking effect. And so you're using less of your actual brake pedal to slow down. So you're not eating through brakes. All you're doing is short sprints all day long when you're in the business, right? You're going from A to B. They're all short links. So battery works perfect for that. And you don't have oil changes. You don't have all these other things.
It'll force you to be more efficient too on your routes, right? I mean, if you can only get 300 miles per charge on a service vehicle.
Yeah.
You're going to have to be frequently stopping, and who knows how long it's going to take to.
That's right.
Back up. So it is an interesting thing that could happen to us.
Yeah, that's why our schedule we have in Sarah will help you do that. You can, if you got 300 miles of range, you can keep them within 300 miles a day, right? I love the idea of doing it from a business standpoint. I just think it's overall easier, and then they can charge up at night. But how do you do that? If they take it home, now your employee's paying for that electricity to charge his own vehicle, and he's going to be probably depleted. The battery's depleted probably every evening. So he's putting a full charge on that thing every night. Now all of a sudden there's a cost there. So you're going to have to absorb that somehow by reimbursement or whatever. So there's no clear cut answer on any of this stuff, but it's worth talking about.
Yeah, we're gonna face it sooner or later, right?
Yeah.
I mean, the whole regulatory thing is just crazy. But getting back to the original topic though of okay, so we sold your business. What's next? What was probably the biggest eye opener for you after you sold the business? What was the most eye opening point? My life has changed.
Well, we were the blueprint. We had to build our own plan. We didn't have a plan. The only plan was let's grow and then try to find companies to acquire. So the biggest thing that happened for me personally is, you're excited because now all of a sudden you have other people's money behind you. And that is a relief.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you can go crazy, but it means that there's well-planned money. Someone's planning that money for marketing. All those things get better because you're not doing all of it. And so what I did like about it was I got help.
That's great.
I got help.
That's one of the most, I don't think we've talked about that. That's one of the most overlooked aspects of this. If you're going to continue on and you really want to expand your business, doing a transaction like that is a remarkable thing because, when you're playing with your own money, you put your own kind of guardrails behind it. It's maybe we shouldn't do this or maybe we shouldn't do that. But when you're playing with house money and you're only making decisions that are in the best interest of the business because you don't have to worry about the money, I mean, it's like unlocking a new level, of an operator. It's like, okay, well, I'm no longer chained to this because I got to make sure I got to make my kid's tuition payment. It's like, okay, that's out the window now. That's already taken care of. Now we got the capital and we're just going to go.
That's right. And so that was the coolest part of it. Was all of a sudden you had a sense of relief that you could do some things that you maybe were cautious about by yourself.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the things that changed. On the opposite spectrum of that, the willy-nilly, I'm going to just, when you're making money, you kind of spend money on things. Like if I needed new air conditioners in my house, I said, hey guys, go called up go put some new AC units in. I need some. Well, that all went away, right? All those kind of things went away, which is not a big deal. But that was really the biggest thing, is the relief of, not having to carry the burden of everything. And that's what I enjoyed a lot of. And then new perspective, new eyes in on the business, helping you think through things that you didn't, have time for. Yeah. So, but when I did this 12 years ago, 11, 13 years ago now, it was different. You got the bulk of your money up front. You didn't have to put in a capital to keep going. You had to put a big chunk of it right back into the business. You just didn't sell that part. It was different. So you got paid for the part you sold, and then the part you didn't sell got invested in the new company. You didn't have to go and put in more money to get back in. You were just in because you were in that the way it was structured. Yeah. So that was a great thing, for sure. But yeah, really and truly, it was just, getting that extra help.
Yeah. Yeah. That's also overlooked. Now, did you ever feel, I'm sure they watched, so you could be, measured with your words, but did you ever feel that the help wasn't the help you wanted? The help was like, hey, we're doing this now. We're doing things this
absolutely.
way.
Absolutely. The answer is absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yes. You know how it is when they come in, they want to change something because they want to put their fingerprint on it, right? Because they came in, they spent all this money and they want to put their fingerprint on it. And, as an owner, you have to go, okay, if that's what they're going to do, we're going to have to let them do it. You can't just keep, you did create a partnership and you have to be open to that. So, that was a big thing to figure out, because I didn't agree with some stuff, which is normal. I'm like, hey man, this thing has grown X amount every year on year. EBIT has increased at the same time year on year. Why are we going to mess with this right here? This part right here is dialed in. Please don't touch it. And so that was where the rub would come from, because, they wanted to come in and put their stamp of approval on some of it, which is normal. That's fine. I get it now. Didn't get it then as much, but I do now.
Yeah, I totally get it. But, and you're probably more diplomatic than I was in all of those things. And
I wouldn't say that.
Because, I'd be like, that's the dumbest shit I've ever heard,
I wouldn't say that. I'm not very diplomatic when I have an opinion.
So, that'd be something that there was constant battles. You had to pick your battles, right?
You had
to. So there's it's like, it's like you're married, right? Mm-hmm. And maybe you're getting divorced, and now you're maybe met somebody else. Now you got you're trying to manage two of those opinions that are conflicting opinion. You're in it's a new dynamic, which is kind of in some respects good, but in a lot of respects not so good.
Well, think about it like this: if they change something and it doesn't go well, like something goes wrong, revenues dip, margins dip, who's got to fix it?
You got to fix it.
Yeah, you have to fix it.
More importantly, they're probably also going to blame you because you're doing something else wrong.
Exactly. And so that's where it gets, that's where you got to become very diplomatic, which as a much younger man, I wasn't as diplomatic because I'm like, damn it, I got all this straightened out and I handed it to you on a perfect platter here. And you made some changes, and now we're feeling the adverse effects of that. And now I've got to go and, tighten my belt up and go fix it again, something already fixed. So that's right there is, part of it. But, it's changed a lot since then. They've learned the businesses now. I mean, the more established ones have, you still have new PE firms coming in that don't have a clue. But the more established ones, they've got their process procedures down and all that. I mean, anybody that can, navigate through 3 to 4 months of changing, software to software can manage just about anything, because it just blows my mind that it takes 3 or 4 months to move same software to same software. And, I just blow my mind. I just blow my brains out. That was, if I was in the onboarding part of those businesses, the millions of dollars spent on just that. So, back in our day, we didn't have software to really mess with. You bought it and you took over.
Just did it. Just used it. Yep.
Yeah. And so, and that's, one thing, it's one thing that we really were, I didn't want anybody to experience that went on to Sarah, because it's literally, a 24-hour process, not months. And on purpose, because I went through that.
Well, that's the biggest pain, right? That's the biggest pain for everybody. And like when they're looking at software, it's like, okay, if they've done a software conversion from one to the other before, they know like, oh shit, I got to relearn all of this stuff. I got, months of this. I got questions. We're going to be doing stuff wrong. I'm going to have bad data. It just, am I going to lose customer information, et cetera? And so people have experienced that. And if you've ever, if you've gone from even Apple to Google, or you go from Microsoft Office Suite to the Google Suite, it's just even that's a little bit of a pain in the ass to learn all of the stuff, right? And the way things are different. So I think what you've done brilliantly, in my opinion, you just made that transition easy. It's should be a one-day transition, very seamless integration. You could learn, it's self-learning. That's, to me, that's the rub of software. That's the bane of the software world for people.
Yeah, and you can actually, we have we've got sandboxes, that you can use now, and you can practically onboard yourself online and use a sandbox and see how Sarah works already in a few hours. That's the future. And
just to dispel the rumors about this, because I know everybody's thinking it, there is no truth to the fact that your guys were behind the whole CrowdStrike Microsoft update that shut down international banking and stuff last week. Okay, just making sure.
No cyber attack or whatever it is. I mean, that ransom is awesome. I mean, have you really listen to how that ransom stuff works? It's crazy.
Yeah, well, the strategy now that you hear from, I know it was some of the hotels in Vegas got hit by it, right? It's okay, just pay it and move on with it. Pay the $5 million.
You have to pay it.
Yeah.
And guess what? How do you pay them so they can't be traced? You
crypto or something.
Yeah, you pay them in Bitcoin. I mean, so Bitcoin's created this whole problem. It's giving the criminals a way to get money from you. And, that's, we have all the security stuff in place and all that. I mean, so we say everybody does, but they started, they're just getting, sophisticated, and they can figure out how much money you got and all that stuff. And then that's what they ask for. And then literally they'll turn it back on. If you pay them, they'll leave you alone.
Yeah.
And they won't do it again, because if they ever do it twice, then people are going to stop paying, and they're going to figure out another way to deal with it. But the actual software that the people use to raid these companies is actually legal. It's a legal software. It's how they use it which makes it illegal. And so we got to fix that problem. Why don't we fix that part?
Yeah.
If it can be used for this particular thing, it must be an illegal software. But the actual software that they use to do this cyber attack and this ransom that they holding on these large companies is all legal. It's just crazy. And it's very clear that that's what it was built for. But they can never prosecute those guys because lines up with the law.
They can change the EPA can change, what type of refrigerant is required to be put in somebody's, air conditioner at their house, but they can't figure out that. That's government at its finest right there.
There you go. We dig. We don't want to do government shows because these shows would go on forever. 6-hour shows, and everybody would leave depressed. So let's just not do that. I don't even watch the news anymore. That's how bad it is.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, there's no need.
My wife and kids told me about the Donald Trump attempted assassination. I didn't know anything about it. They had to send me stuff.
Yeah, well, don't go down that rabbit hole. There's conspiracy. There's going to be 50 years of that stuff probably happening.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So, well, this has been a great show. I appreciate everybody hanging in there with us. What do we do now?
We occasionally rant. Occasionally.
We rant and we rambled and we rolled. I think we checked all the boxes on this show today. But no, we appreciate y'all hanging in there. Hopefully there's some valuable information for you. And we look forward to seeing you on the next show. And my partner here, what would you like to tell everybody before we leave?
Remember, the golden nugget is like, hey, make that list, make that checklist. If this is something you're considering, which everybody, by the way, should be considering and planning. If you're in one of these businesses, regardless of whether you're just self-employed, doing your own thing, struggling, or you got, $400 million, multi-location business, everybody's got to be planning for that exit. So, the sooner you do it, the better. And the sooner you get, serious with yourself about what it is that your life's going to look like after, the better. But until then, keep learning, keep doing, keep growing. Come back to this show, leave comments, smash that like button. Is that what they say?
Subscribe.
and subscribe. That's the most important. You got to subscribe.
Yes, we appreciate that. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.
See you guys.
No BS with Billy and Landon is produced and delivered to you by Sarah Systems. At Sarah Systems, we've created a better way to run your home service business and unlock unprecedented growth. Our field service software was designed by real home service professionals to help you save steps, charge for previously unbillable time, and win more business. But the true change requires more than software. Our live coaching helps you understand and control the aspects of your business that matter most. It's about time for a new era of service, and we're leading the way. If you're ready to join the hundreds of other contractors who've been able to increase profit margins more than 50% within 6 months, visit Sarah.tech today. That's Sarah, SERA.tech today.